Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to a brand new episode of What If Deku Was an Artificial Human. If you guys enjoyed this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel. After watching this video, don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description box down below. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. Izuku had walked up onto the stage as his face reverted to that of a normal smile. He now stood before the Class B student Tetsu. Now for the final match of the first round. Midnight called out. From the Class 1B is Tetsu. And from Class 1H is Yamakumo. The crowd cheered for the teens to knock each other around. They wanted them to spill blood. Midnight looked towards her student, knowing his health issues. She was proud that the three got to the final event, even if to surrender for different reasons. Are both contestants ready? She asked as they nodded. I'm fine. Izuku said, not to refer that he was ready for the fight, but he would be fine due to his blood-spewing tendencies. But before we begin, he started to take off the gym jacket shirt and threw it to the side, revealing the muscles he had. His eyes looked around, mainly at the Class 1A bunch. It's a risky move, but the only way I can use my only available quirk as Azura here without destroying the shirt, he calmly thought. Besides, only if you were close to see me, and usually I was in that bulk form a majority of it anyway. I hope you don't mind if I do this, he said to his first opponent in the tournament. However, his opponent was shedding a tear. His fist was gripped in the air as his eyes were closed. How manly, he said before grinning upon opening his eyes. Then I'll do the same. Tetsu had just thrown his shirt to the side much like he had done. They both got into a stance as they waited for Midnight to start the match. Izuku's eyes darted over to Midnight. Don't let your sadistic tendencies start now. Stop ogling the both of us. Release that grip on the whip of yours and start the match. Start! She called out as Izuku's eyes immediately darted back to Tetsu, who ran forward and used his quirk steel to turn his skin into steel. Steel, a quirk similar to hardening, he thought. Much like Kirishima, he can't keep it up for too long as he will start to suffer from iron fatigue, which will gradually weaken the steel's hardness. We not only took a copy of Class A's files, but Class B as well, and we know your class's quirks too. Izuku started to run at the approaching Tetsu before dropping to the floor and sliding underneath the steel man. He immediately got up and turned around just as the steel man turned around and threw a punch as it went past his head. He inwardly smirked as he raised his right hand up and formed a fist as it came crashing down. Remember to block, he warned the steel man. Let's just say my punches have a lot of force behind them. Tetsu raised his arm to block, but Izuku missed on purpose, getting the steel man's attention. But before the man could say something to Izuku, the roar of what sounded like chainsaws roared out as they came down at Tetsu. The steel teen immediately crossed his arms to block the two chainsaws that sprouted out of two arms that came out of Izuku's back. And then they clashed. And chainsaws ingrown into a pair of extra arms have suddenly came out of Yamakumo's back. President Mike shouted. And sparks are flying. Sparks were flying off Tetsu's arms as he blocked the two chainsaws. He now understood why Azura had taken off his shirt. It was to use his quirk. And then suddenly, from the sides, two more functioning chainsaws collided with the steel quirk user's sides. What? Did you only think I could make two of them? Izuku asked Tetsu. I'm going to go out on a guess and assume that your quirk is similar to Kirishima's, albeit with differences. You can't hold this up for long either. Tetsu's eyes widened as a lot of sparks filled the arena. Let the sparks fly, Izuku muttered. Let the sparks fly, shouted President Mike, causing Izuku to sigh. Izuku then held out his palms. What do you think about drills? He asked as drills came out of his palms before he started drilling into Tetsu's chest. Damn it, the silver steel teen thought. I'm trying to block these two chainsaws, but he's attacking my open defenseless spots. Plus, he guessed correctly. My steel will start to get weaker over time. I'm actually running out of fumes now, and if I remove my arms. Suddenly the chainsaws stopped and the drills vanished. Huh! Tetsu blinked as the arms vanished. ARG! He received an uppercut by a sledgehammer. The sledgehammer came back down, knocking the head of Izuku's enemy to the ground, while at least facing the ground now. Tetsu was about to throw a punch, before he saw four sledgehammers out of Izuku's back before they slammed the steel teen around. If I knew he was packing this sort of weaponry, I would have. Tetsu couldn't think anymore as the sledgehammer arms disappeared. Izuku's hand approached Tetsu's face, as he had dropped his steel quirk. With a strong punch, Izuku or Izuru to this crowd had punched Tetsu, who landed on his back. The fight was over. Izuku had won. Midnight stared with her jaw dropped at her student beating a hero course kid. With strength like that as well as that quirk, he could have been a hero kid, but chose to go to the support course. She closed her jaw but kept that prideful smile. It seemed he kept true to his goal when he said he would place first. And if he did, she couldn't wait to brag, to erase her head and Blood King and hold it over their heads. "The winner is Izuru Yamikumo," she declared as the crowd went wild. As Izuku walked off the stage, he could hear the talk among the heroes watching. Talk about him and Shinso, the potential they had as heroes. Soon, when he would win this tournament, there will be talk of how the hero kids lost to a support course kid. It will knock these heroic kids down a peg as well as cause uneasy knowing that the hero kids lost to a person who didn't have his sights on being a hero in the first place. How could they place their trust in the future if they lost to someone who wasn't a hero and was building gadgets for them? How could they place their trust to future heroes who lost to a villain? That villainous look returned as he walked down a pathway back to his seat. Round 2 was up next, and it was a fight between Shigaraki and Hananuki. He truly wondered who would win in that scenario. Toshinori clapped as he watched Yamakumo walk off stage and out of view after picking up his shirt. That boy had potential to be a hero, and from the words of the heroes he sat with, it seemed they all saw that heroic potential within him. But for the number 1 hero, he saw it all too clearly. He saw the limitless potential within the boy. All Might still had yet to find a successor, and Sir Night did suggest the 3rd year's Mirio Togata. And he had the potential as well. Yet, the hero had a dilemma. Togata had yet to prove himself to the number 1 hero. While he did have the requirements he was looking for, the hero shook his head. Right now Togata was the one that so far had the chance to be his successor. But he had admittedly gotten attached to young Yamakumo. But he didn't want to be a hero. He didn't believe those heroes were heroes. He believed that the support course were the true heroes along with the police and the doctors. He could still remember that one sentence that Yamakumo had told him as they meet before the sports festival began. True heroes don't get recognition for their deeds. Truer words have never been said. Izuku sat in his seat as the next round of fights began, as he sat with Joker on one side and Hatsume on the other with a device she was tinkering on. "You were amazing, Yamakumo," Joker told him. "Yeah, if you were a hero, then I'd have no worries entrusting your babies to you. You'll probably do that anyway." He deadpanned at her before he smiled. "But I never intended to be a hero, just like you too. This is an important role. We are the unseen heroes. The police, doctors and many others out there as well as us, the support course. True heroes don't get recognition for their actions. We are those heroes." Joker stared at him in a new light, as Hatsume stared with admiration. "The fights are beginning, so we better watch. Wonder where Shinso is," he muttered. "That last fight was heart-pounding, wasn't it, everybody?" asked President Mike. "I'll admit, most of the first round fights were way too short, with only a few ones that lasted a while, and that's why all of you are here, isn't it? The next fight is 2 kids from Class B, Shigaraki and Hananuki," he shouted to the heavens. "Will this fight be over in a flash? Or will this battle drag on? Only time will tell." Midnight started the fight, and immediately they acted. Shigaraki used her quirk vines to send her vine-like hair out and wrapped around Hananuki, and boy, do those vines have thorns. However, her classmate Hananuki made the ground underneath her soft like quicksand to where she was sinking. Shigaraki was sinking and stuck in quicksand, or quick cement. Hananuki was wrapped in vines with thorns, and the binding of the vines only got tighter. Who was going out first? A battle of endurance was about to begin. However, after a stalemate that went nowhere, they decided to end it through arm wrestling. So their quirks ended in a stalemate. Izuku thought as Shigaraki had pinned Hananuki's arm down. Now it's Shinso's turn, and through the arm wrestling, Shigaraki moves on to the next round. President Mike shouted. "Now it's Ashido from Class 1A versus Shinso from Class 1C. May I remind you that out of all these kids, only 2 from non-hero classes remain, everyone. 1 from general education and the other from the support course. Sure, 4 arrived with 2 surrendering. I just might end up rooting for these underdogs. Well, anyway, with what I'm seeing, I might end up rooting for the general education and support classes." Ashido stood across from Shinso, with the same look on his face. "Begin!" cried out Midnight as Ashido had shot out her acid. "Acid?" Shinso asked. However, it seemed Mina had refused to open her mouth, which actually came off as a pout. "Of course," he sighed. Once they saw how my quirk works in the first place, they would try and find a way to prevent it. Besides, when it comes to physical strength and defense, I don't have that, I'm weak. Yamakumo had that in spades. However, I do have the advantage. She's an extrovert, I can tell. My quirk is much weaker against introverts who wouldn't speak and mutes who can't. As long as they respond, I'm good, but I'm sadly not that good. He hopped side to side to dodge her acid, slippery acid. He didn't want to find himself sliding off the stage either. Now, Ashido, how can I make you respond? White acid? Really now? He made sure to add that tone that caused her lips to twitch. She knew what he was referring to. Not enough, huh? He looked into her eyes, trying to find anything. You are looking for someone, right? He asked as her eyes widened. I remember you looking into the crowd earlier, but you seemed disappointed, and not to mention before the cavalry battle. He trailed off. Perhaps do you have a crush? He asked somewhat quieter, as he had begun to approach her. No way, she declared. It was then she realized that she fucked up. He placed an arm on her shoulder, turned her around and gave her a simple command. Leave the battlefield, see you next year, he said as she began to walk off the field. Also, from your reaction and the fact you didn't blush at the thought of a person, perhaps you're looking for them? For answers? Ashido had already walked off the field before he heard a yes from her. I'm sorry, I wish you the best of luck finding them. And Shinso has won his round again without throwing a punch. President Mike shouted as the blue-haired teen walked off the stage just as the next two prepared to come onto the field. Izuku had welcomed Shinso back as they watched the next fight, Ida versus Bakugo. Who do you think is going to win? Asked Shinso. I hope Frather. They both seem like the sort who will respond to my brainwashing. Hard to say though. I don't really care seeing as long as them give me a good fight, I'm fine. Still going for that whole non-heroics kid wins the tournament and shows up them up, still liking that. Shinso grinned. Okay, you two, the match is starting, Joker said. Ida stood across from Bakugo, and Ida's engine quirk seemed to be revving. Oh wait, that was just Bakugo growling. Never mind. The fight between Ida and Bakugo will now begin, Midnight said as the two sprang into action. Ida was quick on his feet, literally. With his engine quirk, he was able to dodge around Bakugo, but due to his explosions, he sure had quite the versatile quirk, using his explosions as boosters. Quite clever. Hey Yami, are you okay? Asked Hatsume as she saw the look Yamakumo had. It appeared to be a more serious expression than normal. I'm fine, Hatsume, he assured. Just wondering how a hero like him could exist. I mean, we already have one endeavor. Joker had spat out his drink and started coughing, to which Shinso had started patting his back. Ida definitely has the disadvantage, he called out. Bakugo clearly can resort to long range, something Ida can't do. They watched as Ida sent kick after kick at Bakugo, who responded with dodging with his explosions or attacking back. Okay, Four Eyes, the ash blonde shouted. This has gone on far enough. I just want to fight half-ass. Bakugo had used his explosions to send himself high into the air, as all Ida could do was watch. Die missile barrage! He shouted once he got closer to the earth below before firing explosion after explosion in quick succession over the entire field. Ida couldn't dodge without leaving the field. Why would you shout that? That's now even from our series. Sure, it gets a pass since it's also from Jump, but don't push our luck, Joker shouted. The dust cleared to reveal Ida down from the explosions. Ida is unable to battle. Bakugo is the winner, Midnight called out. I swear to whatever god if that's a reference. Ida was taken to the infirmary as he bumped into Todoroki. The half and half, he said with a scowl. Don't you fucking lose to anyone, got it? Bakugo had walked away as Todoroki had continued to walk to the stage. Seems like I'm up, the purple-haired disguised teen said. Wish me luck. Are you sure you'll be fine? Joker asked. I'll be fine. I will admit, everyone will be betting on Todoroki. Then let them as I shock them once more. He grinned. Sure, the favorite's Todoroki, but I know I can beat him. And besides, he's the strongest in Class A, and that means if I beat him, then I can easily handle the live grenade. He left his shirt jacket with them as he walked to the stage. From Class A we have Todoroki, President Mike said as everyone cheered. And facing against him we have the surprising Yamakumo. This is a fight that will keep you at the edge of your seats. Begin! Todoroki had done the same thing he did when he faced Zero. Created an ice wall, but on a smaller scale. However, sounds of flames could be heard as well as the sound of drills and smashing ice. That's when Izuku appeared with sledgehammers, drills, and blowtorches. As Todoroki created ice, Izuku had either smashed them to pieces or melted them. The drill arms retracted as he flexed his wrists, as blowtorches appeared from his palms as he practically set the stage on fire. Yamakumo's quirk sure is versatile, Aizawa said. He would make an excellent hero if he chose that path. Finally, some words out of you, Eraserhead. President Mike grinned before his attention was back on the fight. I've been talking, you were just ignoring me. Soon you will succumb to your freezing power on your right side. But with you just freezing everything, that is no fun. A predatory grin appeared for a split second on his face. You took my right arm, let me dislocate yours. Todoroki kept freezing the arena as Izuku smashed the ice away or melted it with his blowtorches all the way on maximum flame output. Todoroki was shivering now. He had to use his right side, but he made an oath that he would win with only his ice powers. Keep your eyes, a voice said from behind. On the fight. A normal hammer came down and landed a direct hit. AGH! The white and red-haired teen shouted as he held his right arm. He couldn't move it. It was dislocated. Now you are forced to use your fire powers, Izuku thought. That should really piss you off now. Sure, you can still use your ice powers, but your hand is the main catalyst for using them. Your foot can only freeze ground while your hand can do a lot more. Todoroki had increased the gap between them as Izuku slowly walked forward. Flames started to linger off the left side of Todoroki. He had no choice but to use his fire side now. Come on, burn me to a crisp! Todoroki threw his left hand filled with powerful flames as he released a sea of flames towards the purple-haired teen. It was like a tidal wave of fire. The sea of flames had engulfed Izuku's side of the arena, and when they stopped, nothing was left. And the icing on the cake was Todoroki's horrified face. He looked down to his left side. He had just used his left side, and he broke his oath. And to make matters worse, he did what his father would have done. And that was the worst thing that could have happened. He had incinerated Yamakumo, killed him. Then, from below, he looked down as the earth cracked as a drill emerged from the ground as a fist flew up with impressive speed to the shocked Todoroki. He had no time to dodge in the slightest. Izuku had popped from the ground and his fist landed right under Todoroki's chin. He tunneled under when my flames covered the arena, Todoroki thought. He must have hid behind some of the ice that was melting. After landing the clean hit, Izuku sent a barrage of punches with rubber mallets this time. It still hurt, but Todoroki couldn't fight back. He refused to use his left side again and his right side was temporarily done for. Izuku had grabbed Todoroki and spun him around before throwing him out of the ring. Todoroki stared at the sky as he lied on the grass. He was bested. His eyes went back to Izuru. That was the first person to make him resort to his fire side, and as he closed his eyes, Bakugo shouted curses at him. As the crowd cheered for such an exciting development, and President Mike going crazy, no one knew that Izuku would win against Todoroki, who was proven to be one of the favorites of the tournament. That settles it! President Mike shouted with all his heart. I'm definitely rooting for the support course's Yamakumo. And right behind him, I do not know who to go for, maybe Shinso. Maybe someone else. But Yamakumo is definitely my number one choice. The audience cheered and applauded for the blood battle that had occurred as Izuku was walking off stage. Midnight watched her student walk off with wide eyes. He was strong. Not just pride filled her but also worry. Who knows how much he pushed himself. All Might or Toshi was the same. However, their pride outweighed their concerns. But it seemed that Endeavor would be having a talk with his son as he left. Izuku walked out of view from everyone as he spat out that blood he usually spat out. He rubbed his side as if something had touched him earlier. Fire burns. Fire. When one comes into contact with fire, one thing general happens. They get burned. Hence the saying, play with fire and you're going to get burned. Fire could leave burns, visible burns. However, despite the burn wound healing, it is also possible for the sting of the burn to remain. It is kinda hard to hide my super regeneration, the wolf hiding among the sheep thought. I can easily fake the shock absorption, but showing my wounds from fights? I didn't think that I would want to gain bruises. He then frowned to himself, while he had declared that he would come first to his class. There was a chance that his cover could have been blown at any time. He was supposed to not have the best health, and he was confidently winning each fight. Under a guise of course and holding back with all his other useful quirks. Then there were quirks like shock absorption and super regeneration. He needed to hide them for the cover of Azura too, not to mention the fact that Midnight Sensei was watching over the fights. Who knows when his own teacher could see through his own cover. Despite what happened in the classroom, she was a hero. Another thing he hated about this was the fact that he had to hold back, at least when it came to killing. He had the perfect chance to kill both of his previous opponents one way or the other. He exchanged the frown on his face for that of a smile as he headed back to his group. Shinso was going to be fighting Shigaraki in the next round, and each round his opponent got quieter. If he doesn't take out her now, he would have to burn her hairs. Speaking of which, Bakugo was his next opponent. Compared to Todoroki, it was a downgrade at best, scraps left over from a more delicious meal. There was no way that he was going to throw the fight simply because he needed to keep his cover. And he didn't really want to throw the fight because of it. It was a risk, sure, but a risk that could be prevented. Besides, he could always throw the fight with Shinso afterwards. But he didn't want to lose to him either. For a 6th support department student to win the tournament was risky for his cover. But he had ways to explain that. All he needed to do was beat Bakugo, and depending on Shinso, he might either have to fight him, or he'll win automatically. Losing was not an option. Risks could be avoided. The pride of his sensei for getting further and further into the sports festival, and claiming first place would hide any doubts. With a couple of blood spouts would make her worry. He had ways to deal with Shinso, and he had multiple ways of dealing with Bakugo too, way too many ways. The smile turned into a grin as he thought of his fight with one of the last hero course students still in the tournament. Hey guys! Izuku smiled at his group of friends. I see Shinso already left. He did. Joker nodded. But I fear he is going to have some trouble on his hands. Hatsume, who was tinkering with a device instead of watching, looked up. Maybe, she added. He can get under people's skin quite easily, it seems. Yeah, that's true. If he went up against Bakugo, Bakugo would have already lost. Yamakumo smiled. Speaking of which, you're up against him next. Joker turned towards the purple-haired student. You got a plan or something? I have multiple plans, Izuru revealed. I could take a page out of Shinso's book, seeing as his short temper is something that can cause him to falter. He seems to be a bit more serious now after Todoroki's defeat. Really? Then I might have to dig a bit more personal. Izuku smirked. Joker's head was already facing towards the field, missing Izuku's sinister smirk. Personal? Like his parents or friends if he ever had any, or maybe the fact that he lost to villains, shouldn't be a hero, or maybe failed to protect someone. Along those lines. And if words don't work, I have a technique in the wings. You do? Yes, but it is a secret. Izuku leaned closer to Joker as he whispered. I can tell you if you really want to know. Really, what is it? A serious look had taken over Izuku's face, almost as if a different type of drawing style had changed. After years of torturing my body to a harsh training regime, my powers have ascended to the point I have discovered to convert my energy into a physical form, he said seriously. With this energy, I could use it to enhance my power. For example, my eyes turn white and retain no pupils, and I have 360-degree vision. Or I could change the color of my arm for heightened strength and defense. I call it Kakra. Kakra! That's one letter off from chakra. No, it is chakra. You only changed the name by removing the H from it. Joker turned his head so fast it almost snapped. What the hell? Seriously, do you have a plan? And if so, what is it? I'll shoot him in the knee with a rivet gun. You're going to shoot him in the knee? I might use an axe too. Or a machete, the purple-haired student said. Maybe a staple gun, or a nail gun, or a grain cradle. Okay, that's enough. Axes and machetes? Those are weapons, Joker shouted. They are considered weapons despite also being weapons. An axe cuts down trees and machetes have multiple uses. Hey, Shinso's up, Hatsume said. Shinso walked up to the stage. The crowd cheered as the blue-haired student stood face to face against Shigaraki. Her vines will come straight for me as the match begins. I will have to get under her skin quickly. Begin. Midnight called out as the vines shot out towards Shinso with the intentions of capturing him. You are! What was meant to be Shinso trying to use his quirk ended up getting tangled up in the vines. It wasn't comfortable. He could tell that Shigaraki wanted to tell him to give up, but didn't want to be at risk of his quirk. What's wrong? Cat got your tongue? He asked as the vine-haired girl remained quiet. Come on now, no need to be so silent. Shinso smirked. I mean, you have an impressive quirk. Most people would say that hair manipulation is kind of basic and weak, but you have vines for hair. That's a good capture quirk. I bet it's hard to maintain since it is vines. What do you need for it? Sunshine and water? He asked. Shigaraki was silent, and seeing him not giving up, she was moving him. It must be a shame. Vines tend to go everywhere. She started to bind him tighter. Must be a real shame to have weeds for hair. The vines tightened more. I got some weed killer if you want to get rid of that. Oh, I'm sorry, is your hair supposed to be a chia pet? He smirked as he was getting to her. I have to say, chia pet hair is not the way to go. I'll give you the weed killer for free, my high dash. Shigazaki's eyes immediately blanked. Place me closer to you and then leave the arena. Shigaraki pulled Shinso away from the edge of the ring and brought him closer to her, and placed him down before turning to leave the field. Remember not to run too fast. With that, Shigaraki walked a bit faster off the ring, signaling that Shinso had won the match yet again. Phew, her vines really hurt. I'm just glad I got her in time. Now I can rest while Yamakumo has his match. Midnight watched Shinso walk off the stage as she looked where her students sat as Yamakumo stood up and headed off to get to the stage. Bakugo walked to the ring with a scowl. Damn it, half-ass, he growled as he saw Todoroki. What the fuck? What are you here for? Don't stay silent, half-ass, he growled. You lost your match to non-hero course student. A fucking goddamn support course student at that. And so will you and everyone who went up against Shinso, a general education student, Todoroki said. Answer my question, dumbass. I wasn't here for you, Todoroki said. I wasn't here for you, he repeated. I didn't say to repeat yourself, fucker. My business here is finished, Todoroki said in his usual monotone voice. But since you're here, I'll tell you this much. You will lose if you don't take him seriously. I know that, Bakugo hissed. A small part of him wished to know why he was down here before, but he didn't care in the slightest for the half-and-half bastard. All he was focused on was winning. It seems I'm up, said Izuku as he stood up and started to head for the ring. Good luck, Joker and Hatsume said. I don't need luck. I got something up my sleeve. And what's that? Joker asked. The power of friendship. He gave them a thumb up as if he was going on his final mission with no intention on coming back. The hell type of power is that? Friendship, I get it, but don't say that. Do you know how bullshit that power is? Don't worry. I have some plot armor out the back. Don't use or say that either. That and the power of friendship can only end in ruin. Don't ruin this for the rest of us. It was an honor knowing you guys, Yamakumo said as he closed his eyes. Don't sound it like this is your final performance. It sounds like you are setting off multiple death flags for yourself. And why is the sun only shining down on your face? Izuku started to walk away from them as he gave a somewhat wave as he left their field of view. Don't do that either, Joker shouted. Izuru stood on the stage as Bakugo stood on the opposite end. You ready to lose? Bakugo growled. Even your clown friend said that he can't beat me. Izuku looked at him oddly before he laughed. What's so funny? You really thought he was talking about you? Izuku asked. He was talking about me. I declared in my class that I would take first place. Bakugo frowned. You saying you can win? I'm saying I can win. TCH. I'll be sure to beat you into the ground. You took the words right out of my mouth, Bakugo. Bakugo stopped and looked at him. The fuck did you call me? I called you Bakugo. Izuku smirked. You're dead, you fuck. Begin. Midnight shouted. You know. Bakugo isn't that much of an insult honestly, but it suits you surprising. Izuku said as arms with tools sprouted out of his back. Bakugo, however, was flying with his quirk. Shut the fuck up. He flew over and performed a kick that Izuku had ducked under and used one of the newly sprouted arms to whack the bomber away. Izuku's extra arms were that of sledgehammers, and whenever Bakugo got close, he whacked the brat away with a swing of his arms, while occasionally getting hit by the explosions released by the bomber's quirk. I'm going to come first, he shouted. First? Who would even let you come first? Izuku asked back. Let alone top hero. If you think you can get under my skin, then you're dead wrong, fucker. Bakugo swung his right fist right at the purple-haired teen that surprisingly whacked it up as the explosion occurred in the sky. Izuku had slammed both of his fists into Bakugo's stomach, one over the other. This caused Bakugo to spit out saliva. That better not be the Rokugan, Joker shouted but was ignored. Bakugo raised his hands and fired an explosion similar to that of a stun grenade. Knowing this bastard it probably was. Izuku felt the bastard his arms, which he brought up for defense before he himself spun around, trading the sledgehammers for inactive chainsaws. Stun grenade! The smug bastard smirked. Really? That's all? Asked Izuku as his chainsaws swapped for rivet guns and nail guns. Rivet guns? How are you going to dash? Bakugo's words stopped as it fired past his check. How the hell did you do that? Nearly everyone shouted as a poker face engulfed Izuru's expression. Trade secret. The hell it is! Bakugo used his explosion quirk as Izuku fired his projectiles as Bakugo got closer, and used his explosion for defensive tactics. Izuku suddenly retracted his extra tool-ingrown arms as Bakugo's face got dangerously close. A solid punch hit Bakugo's face, Not just any punch, but it was a 1-inch punch. As Bakugo flew back, he released 2 explosions from each palm, hitting Izuku as it gave the ash blonde some extra distance. Bakugo landed on the ground before he spat to the side. A lucky punch, he hissed out. Then that makes yours a lucky explosion. Hey, you got a problem with the next number 1 hero. Number 1 hero? No wait, hero? He asked the ash blonde skeptically. From my perspective, I can't see any hero traits from you at all. You're fucking dead. I'm pretty much alive, Izuku said. Last time I checked. Bakugo watched in anger as Izuku checked his own heartbeat. Yep, I'm alive. Fucking smartass. The roar of an angry Bakugo shouted. Bakugo ran towards Izuku. I'll definitely become the number 1 hero, he declared as Izuku at the same time sprouted arms with 2 water jet cutters. Izuku fired his water jet cutters, but not directly at Bakugo. It however forced Bakugo to head directly at him. His water jet cutters were dangerous, and he wasn't dealing with the backlash of his cover being exposed. However, it was useful to keep Bakugo to stay where he wanted him. A hero? The number 1? With that personality and quirk, can you really save someone? I will save them. The look in Bakugo's eyes had changed slightly. It was as if Bakugo himself had. No. Izuku's eyes narrowed. From his intel, Bakugo was praised for his quirk when he was a child. He cared for no one. He treated everyone else as inferior. He could have cared less if someone he knew died. Izuku brought his hand up as he grabbed Bakugo's right hand he used to punch and pulled the ash blonde hero wannabe past him as he retracted the arms. He then landed a second 1-inch punch. Save them? He asked. None of your fucking business, he shouted. Does that mean you know people who died? Shut the fuck up. Izuku responded to this with a third 1-inch punch, but using both of his hands at once right into Bakugo's stomach and chest. Bakugo dashed into the air and created 2 explosions, 1 in each hand. He started to spin himself around as he built up the momentum for his explosions. After gathering enough momentum for his apparent finisher from spinning, he fired an explosive tornado at Izuku, creating a large explosion. Izuku had acted quickly as soon as Bakugo dashed into the air, and didn't bother to stand and watch as did everyone else when they saw Bakugo perform his special move. Howitzer impact! He could have heard Bakugo as he managed to get under the ground in time as he used his 2 arms to make a somewhat shield. After the explosion eventually disappeared, with Midnight holding her breath for her own student, Izuku was nowhere to be seen, except for the hole in the ground. Hiding in your hole? Too fucking bad, Bakugo shouted. He let off a large and powerful explosion into the hole. However, Izuku was prepared as around the stage. Bakugo's explosions came out of the ground like volcanoes, and one was right under Bakugo. Bakugo was not expecting that at all. He found himself sent into the air with his own explosion. It was then the demon lurking underneath the earth sprang into action by springing out and grabbing Bakugo's leg and swung his arm to slam Bakugo back into the ground. Katsuki released a gasp of pain with small drops of blood. It didn't help that he landed on some of the sharper stone debris. You're not the only one with named moves, you know, Izuku said as he came down with 6 arms sprouted from his back, and all of them had shock prods. And just before he made contact with Bakugo, he opened his palms either to hold Bakugo down, or sprout 2 more shock prods. Blitzkrieg! The thunderous voice of Izuku said in a similar tone of Bakugo. A large pillar of electricity was seen as Izuru Yamakumo unleashed his own finishing move. It was as if the lightning was having a war with itself. A large pillar of power that consumed not only the ring, but the intended target. Sadly, Izuku had no intention of killing his target, so he had to cut it short. But he did a bit too much to it. Izuku looked over the downed Bakugo, whose eyes had rolled up into head. The winner is Yamakumo, Midnight declared as she broke the silence before the crowd cheered. Izuku put away his multi-arm quirk as people came and took Bakugo away, more specifically to Recovery Girl. I didn't know you could make shock prods, Midnight said as she and her student had walked off the stage. They are tools after all, he replied as he spat blood on the ground. Are you okay? She asked. Izuku would have almost laughed at the motherly tone. I'll be fine, he admitted. But I think I pushed myself too far in that last match. If you need to, you can sit out on the final match, Koyama-sensei said as she placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. You don't have to push yourself so much. You don't need to come first. This was a side that Izuku wasn't ever expecting. He expected her to be the rated hero that she herself was, with a sadistic side in tow. Someone whose costume helped her flaunt her sex appeal. But here she was, being a caring teacher. Books and their covers. It's fine, sensei, he said. I just to rest a while. I already declared that I will achieve the number 1 position here. The match with Shinso won't put much strain on my body like my previous 3, and I'm not only representing me but my class, 1H, and that includes you too, sensei. You know, if you weren't in my class and instead in Eraserhead's class or Blood King's class, you would have made a splendid hero. Thanks, Kuyama-sensei. Now head off. President Mike had just informed everyone that there will be a 10-minute break. Izuku nodded as he walked off as she shook her head. What am I going to do with you? She asked Nun as she placed her mask that she took off back on. Her kids were something else. She had no regrets when she started teaching that class. No matter how much they could get under her skin. 10 minutes had passed as now Izuku was facing off against Shinso in the final round. The final match of the sports festival is against Hitoshi Shinso of Class 1C and Izuru Yamakumo of Class 1H. Shinso noticed that Izuku was wearing his jacket once again. That brought up many questions. Was he going to use his quirk? Was he exhausted? What? Damn, Shinso thought. The worst person to go up against here. He can easily break out of my brainwashing. His blood spouts are unpredictable. He remembered when he talked to Izuru about it. HM? My blood spouts? Nah, I'm used to it. I do feel it though, and it's not that painfully. But I guess I gotten used to the pain. The odd thing about when he was talking about his blood spouts was that blood was dripping from his mouth as he spoke. All it takes to snap out of my brainwashing is pain. His blood spouts cause pain and therefore cause him to break out of my quirk's effects, no matter how small the pain is to him. But why the jacket? He whispered. The jacket was open and ready to be discarded for his quirk. Shinso had a bad feeling about this. Izuku smiled at Shinso as he slipped into a fighting stance. He, however, pulled something from his pocket. Everyone raised an eyebrow at this before Izuku threw Shinso the item. Every kid in the support classes is allowed to bring an invention of theirs into the tournament. I didn't really need one, but seeing as how Hatsume can give her opponents gadgets, I decided to do the same. Shinso stared at the device as it formed into a sword. A white sword with blue lighting. It wasn't a real sword, but Shinso could tell it could do much more damage than a bakken or probably on par with a real sword. Midnight looked between Shinso and Izuku, and after the okay she received, she started the fight. Begin! Shinso held the blade as he looked up at Izuru, who had an inactive chainsaw without the chain from his palm. So he wants to fight like this, huh? Shinso thought. He knows that I don't have any fighting techniques, so he gave me a way to hold my OMN. I guess I can accept this and actually fight without my quirk just this once. Shinso and Izuku circled each other as they held their respective blades. Izuku was holding his blade one-handed since it came out of his right palm, while Shinso held his sword with both hands in a stance similar to kendo, but not actually kendo due to not having practiced the sport before. Izuku swung his blade at Shinso, who used his newly acquired blade to block. The two traded blows continuously. The two continued with Shinso blocking Izuku's attacks with the sword he obtained. However, Izuku had sped up his attacks before Shinso had tried to fight back with the blade he was given. Both remained silent, not even registered to communicate with one another. Their thoughts and words were being spoken through their actions. The swords clashed, and Shinso was caught off guard as Izuku had flipped over him before continuing their fight. The fight was long and harsh. The crowd cheering grew and grew as they watched this modern-say samurai fight for the title of number 1. And to the surprise of the other, both had landed a punch with their left hand in each other's face. They both staggered back as Shinso was the one to recover first. He did a downward swing as Izuku blocked with his weapon, forcing him onto his back as Shinso went for a stab, which Izuku caught the blade and swung his other weapon, causing Shinso to jump. They both had an idea to use their feet, but this caused their feet to meet with one another as Shinso's came down and Izuku's went up. After getting Shinso off him, Izuku sprung up and he increased the speed of his swings. Shinso backed off as he hit the ground and swung the blade at Izuku, who backed off, gaining distance. The two shared a look with one another. They were going to settle the match with one last attack. The two prepared themselves as they held the blade in their right hand while placing it next to the hip on the left, almost as if they were sheathing the blades. It was the final stand. The last attack to settle who would win this fight, which one would place first and the other place second. Izuku dashed forward with the blade at this side and unsheathed it as Shinso did the same as they passed each other. They stood for a while before Shinso dropped to one knee. I lost, Shinso admitted loud enough to hear before falling onto his face. And it's over, President Mike shouted. The winner of the sports festival for the freshman year is Izuru Yamakumo of Class 1H. Fireworks went off as a pedestal was brought onto the field. Now then, let's move on to the award ceremony. Midnight declared with a smile filled with a bit too much pride. One of her kids did win after all. The pedestal had 3 different heights for those in the top 3. On the first pedestal was Izuku and on the second was Shinso himself. They both had a smile, with the latter's being more of a smirk. On the third and lowest of the 3 was Bakugo. Third place could have gone to Shigaraki as well as Bakugo, but due to our judges and the way the battles occurred with the fighters, we had decided to give the third place medal to Bakugo. Please understand, Midnight said with a finger to her lip and winked. Please don't do that again, her 3 kids said. However, while just missing to gain the number 3 position on the pedestal, she still receives a medal, just not ceremoniously. Time to confer the medals of the 3, and the one who'll present the medals this year is naturally none other than It is I. A voice shouted as All Might had jumped from the top of the stadium and landed in front of the 3 on the pedestal. Izuku had to hide his feelings and put on a fake smile. Great, All Might, he venomously thought. And I am here with the medals. Our hero All Might. This year's freshmen sure are lucky, one hero said. They got to get observed by All Might. Another added, Congratulations, Bakugo. You're a tough customer. All Might said as he placed the medal around Bakugo's neck. He was still unconscious, but that didn't matter. He muttered out. Well, not unconscious, but groggy. He might as well have been. Recovery girl could do wonders. Shinso, congratulations. That was splendid work with your quirk. All Might placed the medal over Shinso's neck. Thank you. Man, this is hard trying to keep saying my boy when Yamakumo is around. All Might thought as he smiled at Izuku, who smiled back, hiding his hatred for the hero in front of him. Maybe he could rip his neck out if he leaned closer? No, too many heroes. Plus Eraserhead was also here. Yamakumo, congratulations. You have placed first. Both you and Shinso, both from non-hero courses, have successfully reached both first and second. Izuku was confused at All Might's tone. It was familiar this time around. He placed the medal around Izuku's neck as he smiled at young Yamakumo. Izuku smiled back and All Might's face was covered in blood. Yach? Everyone shouted as Izuru spouted blood on All Might's face. He was sick this entire time, everyone thought. I was holding that in for a while. Sorry, can we wrap this up? All Might nodded as he turned around, still with the blood on his face. And there you have it. This year, it's these 3. However, take heed, folks. There was a possibility for everyone in this arena to stand there. It's just as you saw with your very own eyes, ladies and gentlemen. They competed and boosted each other up. Everyone climbing ever higher, advancing ever farther. The next generation of heroes will sprout from the seeds planted this day. And to that sentiment, I'll add one more thing. All Might raised his hand into the air. Everyone say it with me now. And, great work, he shouted as everyone else shouted plus ultra. All Might, that was obviously a plus ultra moment. Oh, but I thought you'd appreciate a great work since you all look like you worked so hard. The silence from that was broken as Izuku spouted blood once again. Man, I've been spouting blood a lot today. He really is that sick? Everyone in the stadium shouted. Class 1H had returned to their classroom as they congratulated Izuku on taking first, showing up the hero course kids. And from the looks of it, from when they walked with Shinso, his class did the same. Since you've all earned a rest, you have tomorrow and the next day off, Midnight said with a smile. Thank you, Kuyama-sensei. Hey, don't thank me out of the blue when you were all trying to get under my skin earlier. Next generation of heroes? You got to be kidding me. Izuku inwardly scoffed. With mine and Shinso's victory taking the top 2 spots, those next generation heroes have it a lot tougher now. How could you entrust the future to heroes who couldn't beat those who aren't even taking the hero course? One from general education and the other creates gadgets for the heroes. Everyone will now be skeptically of the new and weak generation of heroes. Weak heroes who couldn't even beat the villain among them all. However, according to Izuku's thoughts, that was currently happening. How could heroes send out recommendations to those who couldn't beat one general education student and one support course student? The hero classes would be lucky if even a few got a recommendation. Izuku's plan had worked and left an impression, a strong and growing one. They trust in the new generation of weak heroes was already planted in their minds, and the more they thought, the more they agreed. The talk was all about him and Shinso, not of the heroes. Talk of the hero kids was mentioned, on how they lost badly to the non-heroes. This was both a blow to the hero kids' pride, and a boost to his and Shinso's own. They couldn't place their trust in the next generation. Izuku's plan had worked, but this was only a small part, small to some but bigger to others. It was different for everyone, but for heroes. While it might have been small, was still something that was considered big. Izuku hid a smirk. This generation was falling, and soon all other heroes will following, the next and previous generations. Oh, before I forget, Yamakumo, Midnight said. Yes, sensei? He asked as he was pulled from his thoughts. You worried quite a bit, especially in those fights, she said. If I ever hear you do someone that requires you to push your body in any way. She cracked her whip and licked her lips with a very sadistic look on her face. I will have to punish you. Wow, sensei, he said. I knew you were a sadist, but I didn't think you were that desperate. Yes, sensei, geez. Are you okay, sensei? Control yourself, sensei. Did seeing him without a shirt up close and watching get wounds and bruises excite you that much? What the hell are you brats talking about? She cracked her whip, but her expression was more comical than anything. Izuku just laughed with the rest of the class at Midnight's misfortune. Why are you all laughing now? Classic Midnight. The laughter resumed. That reminds me again. Izuku stopped laughing as Midnight looked at him. Oh no. He had a good feeling at what this one was about. During the scavenger hunt, you brought me over, she said. What was on that card? Izuku's face paled as he started to sweat. Oh no, if she finds out that it was something sexy, then she'll never drop it. She'll never let the class know. Let me drop it again. He panicked. This will just boost her sexy ego back up again. Something near its expiration date, he blurted out. Midnight stared at Yamakumo as she started to tear off a part of his costume on her arm to use her quirk. Izuku ran down the hallway with an enraged Midnight on his heels with her quirk ready to roll and to put him to sleep when she caught him. She was also carrying her whip too. He didn't really want to be on the receiving end of the whip, nor become a part of her sadist pleasures. She was shouted incoherent screams about nearing expiration date. This was the scene nearly everyone saw as they ran through the hallways. It, however, was good exercise. She must never know. That was the sole thought of Izuku at this present moment. She must never know the truth of the scavenger hunt. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. I hope you enjoyed exploring the fascinating what-if scenario of Deku. The possibilities were truly mind-blowing. If you found this video entertaining and thought-provoking, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to me and inspires me to bring you more captivating content in the future. Stay tuned for more exciting what-if stories and other amazing videos coming your way. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep embracing the power of imagination.